Hello and welcome to this Saving Life Q&A, our first one. I'm Raphael.
And I'm Victor from IVPN.
Yeah, and super cool that we can do this already this week. And we thank everybody who has sent in questions. So many things I think the two of us have answered on the Discord. As well as everybody everywhere else where we have gotten questions, but we have gotten some questions. One for, of course, the live stream itself. Goofy Navigator wrote something explicitly for the live stream, and we have gotten some from members of the community. So I guess Henry and Seth were the two where we already collected a couple of questions, which we want to answer here. We might answer them a second time with them as well, I guess. But yeah, let's jump right in. If you're here watching, you can always use the Discord, link is in the description, or you can use the YouTube live chat, which is also fine. So all the usual places. I guess let's start with the first question by Goofy Navigator, which of course I guess is more a question towards Daniel and me. He's asking, I'm curious about the reasoning because he was responding to my request for questions, and Daniel are not joining IVPN. What will happen to Raphael and the other Saving team members? Will they be joining the IVPN team, continuing to develop on Portmaster? I guess this is also going into a question that Henry asked as well, so this question has come up a couple of times. I will take the lead if that's okay with that question. Sure. So Daniel, Vladimir, and I, the two, and I will be starting something new, which is not in the privacy realm, which is not in the B2C realm. It is still cybersecurity, which is where we all three are at. But it is I would say well outside, but it is sort of like a vacation from all the talking with people on a regular basis and stuff. And even though the community has been really great, I like the Saving community a lot. Being part of it and not having to sort of like actively be concerned about where the community is going is cool. Sorry, Victor, for you having to deal with this in the long term. But I think it's very cool people. So I'm very happy for them. And we might be sharing some stuff if it comes up in the future. If you follow our socials, we might be sharing some things. But it probably isn't for you if you're watching, because it's not for privacy. It's not anti-privacy, but it's not the target, and it's not for B2C. So it's cybersecurity, and it's a little bit more suited for us introverts, I guess. So let's.
Just one thing. I wanted to add one thing. I think you mentioned this a couple of times before, but I think it's a very nice thing that you relate to us during this process, is that you care about this thing deeply, as you know, that's evidenced by the many years of work you put into this, and that kind of thing doesn't just go away. No. And it's not something you are not. I can attest to that you are definitely not in a state, if anyone is wondering, of like, oh, finally we can, not think about this at all. I think this is why you were very adamant on choosing a future owner of the service who is willing to care about this deeply, just as much you did, about the mission and about the community and about making a difference with these kind of things. And so this is what I wanted to add that with this long intro here, is that I think you will be keeping an eye out on the different developments, and there might be some suggestions to us, or just as community members, and some feedback on the direction. I think that's very important for us as well. It's very, very valuable, and we appreciate that.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It's for us. Also, of course, you're saying caring deeply, and caring deeply with more shoulders is, I guess, easier as well. So, and this is partly what I try to say in my blog post, where it's like, it is a win for the community because the three of us, it is taxing. It is taxing, again, like steering the community. And even though we have so many helping hands in it, yeah, people who are also like making sure that people have good etiquette and so forth, it is completely different doing this whilst thinking of the next feature, whilst maintaining the current, like the network and everything. It's so many things we have done simultaneously. And you're right, that bliss of mind where I know that IVPN has such a cool track record for 15 years. You've been around longer than we have. We can rest easy and be like, okay, good. We don't have to be part in this to make sure that it's continuing in a direction that we would continue as well. So I think thank you for adding this.
And just touching on one more point, we'll just riff off on each other without questions here, but one thing I wanted to highlight and just add to that in terms of the IVPN's team and the different responsibilities. So of course we have the IVPN service. That's a very mature service in terms of running it and the apps, the resiliency, our processes and everything else. And we have a very tight-knit team who has been working. Most of the team members have been with us for at least 4 years. I think I mentioned this before. And we have very specific autonomous, like small teams or one-person teams for quality assurance, customer service, mobile development, desktop development. So we can use all our experience and our processes and us working together to like spread these kind of tasks around, which can it's probably less taxing for us in this sense. And everyone has a clear idea on their own responsibilities, and we are very confident that we can, of course, after the handover process is done, which might take some time, but after that we are very confident that we can run these services smoothly and then improve it as well. So I just wanted to add that.
And I think you're touching on something very cool here as well. Like, we're currently in the middle of the handover process, so we're working next to and with the team, and this is also cool. Like, not just like everybody who's using Portmaster or using SPN or being part of the community, there is intentionally never a moment where some part of the ship is not actively being maintained. So that's part of the reason why we're like, okay, good, this can take time, but it's for this reason, so that at no point something could go away and nobody would notice it, because at the point when IVPN fully takes over and we actually are not part of, like, don't have access anymore, at this point they already have seen and have touched everything and have understood where everything was and should be going and stuff like this. So super cool, this process so far.
Yeah, but that will definitely take time. So we are have just started this process, and before our agreements were done and in place, we have done just a minimal amount of work in this, because until you are 100% sure that this is going to go through, many things can happen in a process like this. You don't want to jump, into the deep end, but this is what we are doing now. So now we are uncovering all different parts, and there is like a fair amount of complexity, for Portmaster and for the SPN and for the infrastructure. So there is definitely a learning curve here. And I think it's important that for the time being, in December and in January, most of these things that were run by chiefly Daniel and Rafael, but also Vladimir, that's going to continue for some time. And I think once we take over like major responsibilities, and when that process is concluded or closed, I think we'll communicate that as well, right? So
yeah. Absolutely. So people will know and,
Yeah,
and understand and know whom to write support tickets. And when they see that it's
exactly.
not regards Raphael at the bottom, they will understand, well, it hasn't been me
Yeah, of course,
answering the
of
email
course.
anymore.
Yeah,
Okay. So, but I think it's beautiful then, like, into the next topic would be Portmaster future, and we have gotten a couple of questions from different folk around where Portmaster will be going, and I think we have tried to make this clear from the get-go, but it is good hearing it multiple times, I
sure,
think, and it
of
cannot
course.
be said enough. Will Portmaster stay open source? What are your thoughts about this, and where is IVPN taking all of this?
Sure. Well, the short answer is yes, 100%. We as a company are very much favoring this approach, um, partly for transparency, partly for, more eyes, can look at any kind of issues. And we have no reason to, change this model. So I'm aware that in some acquisitions on mostly open source companies, they're like, okay, there's a rush to like protect it and like put it into different business model, or turn it into closed source and try to, play it that way. We have no intention at all of doing that. For IVPN, our apps have been open source, I think, under the same license as Portmaster for 4 years, and our website as well. And we have some plans to open source parts of our infrastructure as well for better transparency. So that's definitely like more and more open source
Yeah.
is the way to go for us, and that will not change for the saving services.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Well, you have a track record with this as well. It's not,
Yep.
well, in this case, we will definitely be
Yeah.
different, but no, it has been, and it's just continuing. And this was part of, from when we started talking, we already knew this, both sides, and yeah, super cool. Henry then asked, of course, Henry asked, plans for Portmaster on macOS and other operating systems.
Yeah, I think that's a valid question. This is a topic I can share. I think that we touched on this in our conversations over the past couple of months, and the answer is we'll definitely make moves in this regard. So I think for the improvements of Portmaster and SPN, and maybe the VPN integrations we'll touch on later, there will be a couple of major projects that will be multi-week or multi-month, longer endeavors. And I think support on Android, and I think that is what stands out for me as the logical next step. And other platforms, it's also a possibility. I don't think that we would just rush and do a lot of things at once. So we'll take it step by step. But the caveat here is that, and the honest answer is I don't know yet. And the reason for that is that we agreed internally that our number one goal is to take over the service, operate it smoothly without any issues. And when that process is close to completion, then we'll sit down with our team and involve you as well, of course, and getting community feedback on that as well. Try to formulate a rough roadmap and understand where we can create the most value for the most people and the most users. But it's very interesting because so far from the response that I got via emails and the things that I've answered on the Discord, overall, there are some things are clear, and I think most requests were around Android and the SPN and VPN compatibility. So that's also already interesting. But yeah, we will think properly about this, and in some fashion disclose our plans, so there will be no surprises, and you will see that there is progress will be made. And yeah, we have all the intention to, and we'll put the resources and the time into improving the service over the next couple of years. This is not a, let's grab something and turn it into something that is good for us. We think it could be an important part of our of our uh, of our goal to provide more and better services for resisting online surveillance.
Super cool. Yeah.
As I put it in our blog post. Yeah.
Maybe then adding as sort of like not quite a third party, but in between, of course, having been developing on 2 platforms over the last years, we from the get-go have, and the reason why there's not a Mac app, and I think we talked about this in past Safing live streams, was we wanted to do one in the beginning. And for those who have been following Safing for years, most of us actually started at Safing and we gave them MacBooks to work on, because Mac OS is a cool operating system for developers. If you're a developer, you probably know this as well. Linux, of course, is cool too, but Macs are nicer, even though homebrew is a little bit iffy. And so the reason why we ditched Mac OS back then was multiple, but also the number one recommendation that we got was don't triple the work you do, because you have to do the same stuff on Linux, on Windows, and on Mac. And we actually considered only doing Windows for the beginning because the privacy need there is the highest. But because our second favorites, or maybe for others, the most favorite was Linux from the get-go as an operating system, that sort of was like, okay, good, we will do 2, but we won't do 3. And so for you as well, now you're in a similar position where you're like, okay, we need to understand, or at least I guess you want to understand where everything is and want to maybe start making changes, and then making changes on 2 operating system is different than on 3. So I so understand, and I hope that the community at large will understand this as well, that it's for the better if you can focus and if you can understand and grasp it first firmly and understand it firmly, and then make confident changes and confident improvements later on. And so, yeah, from my perspective, take your time. I'd love to see, I think people have seen that I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I'm on iOS. I would love to see Portmaster on iOS. I don't care as much about Android, but we understood Android would probably be easier, and so we started with Android, and I guess that's partly why you hear all those requests as well, because there already is an Android app, and you sort of need to finish it, and then you're good. But again, for everybody, Android also, of course, it's ARM. The operating system is much more limited in certain regards. So yeah, even though IVPN has experience with this, I would not consider it an easy journey to go those last steps. So yeah.
Yeah, I can share again pretty transparently. I think iOS support was the least discussed internally for us. In terms of just evaluating the potential and the roadblocks, but this doesn't mean that it will not come to the list when we are doing a deeper evaluation of the roadmap. So yeah,
super cool. And follow-up question to this, where's development of Portmaster continuing? Also by Henry was, do you have plans of making Portmaster easier to use for people who have never used the tool before? And yeah, it's because it's a lot to take for new users and stuff like that. The learning curve can be high. What are your thoughts on this?
That's an interesting question. We have talked about this a little bit. I've been thinking about this. I'm not a UX expert. I have some experience with different type of B2C and web products, wearing different hats. And my personal impression was when evaluating the Portmaster service that there was a learning curve for me, because of course I'm pretty much versed in the with the VPNs and DNS and networking. I understood the concepts, and it was okay for me. But I was thinking about this when I was listening to, I think Daniel and David had a interview with Seth in the Opt-Out podcast, and I think that was 3 years ago, 3-ish, perhaps. And they mentioned you have a vision or where you want to get to, where even someone's mom or even grandma can use Portmaster. I think that's perhaps changed for different reasons. We haven't talked about this, but we can chat about this part. I would be interested. So I think that criteria is not fulfilled at the moment. I think generally IVPN is preferred by more technical users and also those who have like a high awareness about the privacy issues. If you have this combination, then you usually go and start researching VPNs. You will very quickly ditch stuff like Nord and like some other big providers, and you will end up with a couple of choices, 2 or 3, maybe 4, that like the privacy community we are a part of recommends, and thankfully one of them is IVPN. Um, but and here's the on the other hand in this is that we always wanted to make IVPN in a way that is very easy to use. I think with a VPN service, it's a little bit more easier than with like a firewall network filtering tool. So because if you can just engineer it and build it in a way that you just press a button and it works in most cases. So we wanted to keep that with IVPN, not overwhelm the users with choices, options, information, um, and um, and it works for. I only see this, of course, from customer service tickets, but we get people starting a customer service ticket saying like, "I have no idea about any of this. I'm not technical. Please help me out with." And they ask questions. I'm not going to give examples, but like things that would be super easy for me to understand and resolve. So we have this mindset where we want IVPN to work for people who don't have a lot of experience or deep technical acumen. But on the other hand, under the hood, if you open the hood and if you want to customize it or advanced troubleshooting or change protocols, ports, empty sizes. So there's a lot to do there. So this is the kind of like two-tier building of a product. So this was a long-winded way to answer the question, but I just wanted to give context because the answer is we would like to pursue that type of mentality, with the development. And in this case, if we think that there is a way to make it easier for a certain subsection of users, then we will try to understand better their journey, their needs, their challenges, and make changes. But again, what those changes would be, that I cannot answer right now.
Yeah, and I guess the major problem, as you're hinting at, what Portmaster is, that for some things you need to know how the internet works, and people don't know how the internet works, and they barely know what DNS is and how DNS works, and part of that was, for instance, we had very early on started making the decision when you're talking about domain names if we should put it fully qualified, so with the tailing .com, which is the correct way for a fully qualified domain name. And people just don't know this. And this is just like, if you're into this, you understand that, but if you're not, you don't. And so yes, with the grammar, I think at the moment, for most people, if they just install Portmaster and never open it, it already increases their privacy. But yes, it makes some things are hard for them, and some things, especially if you start trying to make changes, and that's where it gets difficult. So I'd say, and this again, like, because people need to understand networking at least a little bit. So maybe what IVPN could do is, and you already have like so many blog posts and cool documentation, and we tried with the Safing Wiki, and there are already contributors, externals, also like who are translating stuff. I think having it super easy without learning is, I think, impossible, but maybe more material for people to understand would help. But super cool, and I understand that you're saying, well, you already have technical users, and you understand, again, with 15 years of experience, a little bit better at what spot those users probably are when they are considering joining and starting and using it. So my grandma, I can tell everybody, my grandma does not care about privacy, and sometimes to a degree where I'm scared. Like, where are you putting your credit card information? Please lock it. Yeah, this was probably a phishing site,
Yeah, I understand. I mean, yeah, we have some issues with the grandmas where we deliberately only send photos, like family photos on Signal, but then they sync it to the Google Photos on their phones, and it's like, But when I found that out, I was like, for 1 second, I was getting a little bit, worked up about this, and I'm like, no, it's fine. Let's just change it.
Yeah.
Don't use it anymore. Fine. Okay. So yeah, I understand that. But yeah, just to add one more thing to the technical side, I think it's an important point that IVPN is just by, if you look at our website, look at how we communicate, or our knowledge base or our customer service interactions. You know, all of our team, most of our team is very technical and with a lot of experience and information security experience. Um, and we think that the joining forces here, one of the reasons was that I think the Portmaster is a fairly technical product in this sense, and which means that the people are using it, there is a very very good intersection, or like very good fit in terms of our how we think about things, how we develop products, and how you have done so. So we wouldn't have considered this move otherwise. So we will keep that direction. So we are not don't have any plans to completely focus on the someone who just bought a Windows and wants a firewall kind of, because there are some other firewall products out there for Windows, for example, which are, I think it's more for the maybe less technical users. That's not a direction we would like to take, but yeah, we'll consider improvements.
Yeah. And those usually, just because a little bit for my pride, I need to say most of them are just an interface for the Windows firewall, and they're just making they're making changes in the Windows firewall, which Portmaster does handle differently and can do other stuff, and so forth. Before asking this next question, I'd like I see that we have viewers live. Have not gotten any questions yet. Please send them in. We are aiming, I think, for an hour, so we're already halfway in. I guess we have more questions prepared than we can answer in this one live stream. But if you have a question live, we will answer that live, and we will prioritize this one. And we can do another one later if Victor wants to either record it or live again. We'll see.
Sure.
But please, if somebody has questions, just ask them out loud. And if you just want to say hello to Victor, I guess this would be nice as well. So just to make sure that that everybody who joined later knows this is a place where you can ask questions.
Yeah, last time we were doing a recorded video. Now it's live, so we can.
Now it actually is live.
Yeah.
Which is why we have the split screen, because we're not in the office together anymore. And this elaborate setup, I think it works. If it's not working, also let us know in the chat. We'd love to see if everything works out fine. Also know, of course, Victor, just as the time is unusual. We're very early in the day, so typically we're later. Cash payments in the future. Is IVPN forsafing accepting cash payments in the future? What are the plans?
Yeah, definitely. So IVPN have been accepting cash payments for a long time. We don't want to change this. So we haven't ironed out the details about the handover of that yet. So for the time being, Daniel and Rafael is going to process that for the same address. Then that will likely change at some point in the future. We haven't really read the details of that yet. That will probably come in January.
Super cool. Gavin actually took us up on the request for comments. Hey Gavin, he's on the Discord. If you're only watching on YouTube, just Gavin says just joined in.
Hello.
Okay. Question from Gavin live. Is this a merger or just a collaboration between the two companies, and will Safing remain independent entity? Gavin, I think you have not read the blog post. And in the blog post, we said it is an acquisition. And and I understand you just joined. The first question was, what is happening to the team? And I already said Danielle, Vladimir, and I are leaving. We're currently in a handover process with the team at IVPN, and it will be a smooth transition. And we will stay part of the community, but not part of Safing. And at one point, our chats for the handover, the servers will be closed and everything, and we will have to contact support as everybody else. Support at IVPN or support at Safing. So yeah, no, it is not. It was intended. Maybe that's a cool insight here as well. It was intended as a collaboration. We thought about in the beginning we talked about collaborating, but then we figured out it's not it would be from both sides better if IVPN would take over, and we can. And again, I said in the beginning a little bit more about the why and where and what. But yeah, so it was intended as a collaboration, but through the process, through the months, we figured out, okay, good. It's probably better if their whole team can take ownership and lift and bring Safing and especially Portmaster to new heights. So it's not independent. They're technically sister companies at the moment, but same ownership. And
yeah, and just one thing that I might add here, I think in the IVPN blog post we have touched on this, just to give a little bit of a context and backstory on how we came into this consideration that you mentioned. With IVPN, we have been thinking about doing more and expanding the types of services, let's say the type of value that we can create for customers. We believe IVPN is a pretty mature product in many respects. That doesn't mean that we'll stop developing it. There is always a lot to do, and we have very long backlog and roadmaps, and that development will continue. On the other hand, we often emphasize that a VPN is just a part of a toolkit on using it to, depending on your threat model, what kind of things you want to protect yourself from. It's maybe a first step or a step, towards that. But as we progress, I think, especially in the past couple of years, it's very evident that if you want to do it in a way that has increased that level of protection and cover more and more ways that your data or your privacy can be compromised. So there are other services that we use personally, and one of them were not everyone in the team, but the people who are involved in the development and making these kind of decisions. So, and one of them was a tool like Portmaster. I can say another one is a very specific focused way of DNS filtering, using different solutions that, if you're listening to this or you watch this, the recording of this, you probably know some of them. So these were the things that we consider that are very close to the, let's say, a stack that you would use. And one of the things that we evaluated is developing these and developing something like Portmaster. And we have looked at the market. We've looked at a different solution. We have tested them, used them extensively, and it was very clear that Portmaster is the for us in terms of usability and the different options and how mature it is and the reliability it was absolutely the number one. So we have started discussing certain collaborations, maybe integrations into Portmaster, IVPN integrations, or some joint campaigns and different ideas that were brainstormed. But after some time, it became apparent that for both parties, it would make sense that we would continue operating Portmaster. And I think we are very excited by it. So very happy that all this came together in the past couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gavin, again, we will stay part of the community, so you can for sure say at Raphael in the Discord and stuff like that. So we're not gone, and we might like on our socials, like personal socials, share about where we're going in the future, but it's not in the privacy realm and it's not in an B2C realm, so it's not there. Okay, admin and organization. I don't know who the question was from, but we got the question in. I was under the impression Safing had some form of government funding. What will happen with that? I think Henry asked that. Do you want to go into that? I can't hear you, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, there was some audio hiccup there.
Sure.
So can you
Yeah,
repeat
I
the
can hear
question,
you
please?
again. All is well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Oh, you
Okay,
did not hear me
yeah,
either. Okay.
exactly.
So the question I think from Henry was, I was under the impression Safing had some form of government funding. What will happen with that?
Yeah, I think if you don't mind, can I ask you to just summarize like
Sure, sure,
the
sure.
backstory of that, because that would be easier for me to segue into the how we think about it.
Okay. I mean, I can sort of like say how I understood it. So yes, Safing has gotten on the homepage. We have been very transparent about multiple things. There was we started with Usability, that's from the European Space Agency, the Business Incubation Center. We have gotten some funding from NetID. We have gotten some funding from FFG. And FFG has been a huge topic, so Victor knows very well about them, and as I guess that's the Austrian funding agency has the most
Yeah.
familiarity by this point. Let me quickly say the first two, Isabik and NetID, both are like have been fulfilled. This has been a grant for developing products with a special focus on open source and all of this, and this is done and dusted. FFG is a little bit different. And Victor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what will happen to them, I think two parts that I'm thinking into two directions. One is what is happening with the existing grants and like the obligations. So there are certain obligations that were taken over or taken up by Safing. I think most of these contracts, so the contractual obligations, most of them are fulfilled already, except for one contract that has some stipulations around the operation of the company, and things have to be in Austria and some other parts, which was part of our discussions with Daniel and Raphael. So that contract will be fulfilled and essentially run out and concluded in a foreseeable future. Yeah, in terms of, so that's one. So we will fulfill the existing obligations, but again, just to make it very clear, they are about like operational, business, administrative obligations, and nothing like any kind of request for government entities or data related. So that's definitely, there's no part in that about that. So but once we conclude these contracts and they have like a time period that they have to be these obligations have to be fulfilled, which will run out in roughly in a year, and after that all these contracts will be concluded, so there will be no government funding related contracts live. So that's how we think about the current things. We just want to make sure that we do everything right, so that we don't go into any kind of issues with these existing or previous obligations.
Yeah, which I
and
think
the second part, maybe. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, which is very honorably. We have, like, from our perspective, so Safing is a GmbH, which is like a limited liability company, and what others do, and there are, I think, in Austria, too many examples to count on this. And I think this question was asked by Henry, but I think like somebody from the DACH area would actually could have asked this as well. they would
Yeah, I understand.
fault on those payments and everything, and they would just like close it and whatever. And I think it's very honorably that IVPN says no, we won't be on the up and up, and we don't want to have anything on our like list of things, countries we might not want to visit anymore or whatever, you know. And I think this is very cool. And this was never a consideration for you in our talks, which was for us also a sign that this is like, it's not just privacy, it's also good business. It's also being like holding up the deals, holding up the contracts and all of this,
Exactly.
which made it also easier for us, where we're like, okay, good. Even though we are not liable for any of this, we don't have to sort of like have a bad conscience that somebody who's just like whatever after
I
us. And
understand.
I think this is super cool for us as well. And so,
Nice.
yeah, very, very cool. And I think very, very, very honorable.
Just a quick
Yeah,
hello, Ronald, if I pronounced that correctly. I
yeah,
really hope so. Just wanted to give the shout out there.
super cool.
But yeah, just to add to that, like yeah, we are pretty old school in this regard and like straight up. Of course, I would like our conduct to back that up and not just me saying it on live stream. But I think we're trying to do that. And yeah, what we promise and what the commitments we make. Of course, as we are buying Safing, we take on all those commitments, and we've wedded them, and we have had long chats about them, and we had some lawyer advice involved in this. So we have done the proper work on understanding all the things that happening here. There's nothing that we have found that we would not be able to take on and not be happy to take on. And of course, for example, with this government funding, I'm personally, I'm somewhat suspicious when I see this with some other companies. But if it's explained to me, like what is the purpose of that, is what and what is behind that, and I understand that it has no bearing on, yeah, for example, data retention or any kind of policies that you make, or in that case, it's fine. So yeah, that's one part of the question, and the second part is in the future we will not be applying for any grants. It's just not in our MO. We don't usually look for these type of things, and yeah, it's not very likely that will well, it's very unlikely, I would say. That's a better phrasing, that would go into that direction. Yeah.
Super great. Okay. Um, Gavin asked about DNS, and I quickly wanted to mention this because he asked earlier on the Discord, and we said we're going to prioritize Discord. I think so. He asked about other DNS services in the quick settings, and when they will be added, if they will be added. I think I can answer this quickly.
Sure.
First, this is, I think, the wrong live stream for this sort of question. It's we're trying to do the Q&A on the acquisition and for people directly at IVPN. And we said earlier, you will sort of like want to understand everything first and then make changes. And so maybe this will come afterwards. But as you said earlier as well, you will consider or look into everything that you could do and then make smart choices at that moment. And so if other defaults or other pre-configured options are like in there maybe, and if more people request them, I guess you would make those changes. But
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah,
add to
just one
this?
note. I mean, yeah, I think earlier we talked about major projects like, let's say, Android support and some other things that would take a longer time. In terms of like smaller or smallish, improvements, changes, I've got some messages on Discord regarding some previous commitments or promises about these. What I can say about, so for example, yeah, so Rafael told me 2 months ago that they will do this and that. So that, I mean, we will try to gather these, to the best of our abilities and go through these. I think we, again, just like I said in the previous point with the existing commitments, if they make sense and don't clash with any of our values, or like strong commitment to strong policies and all this kind of stuff, I think we will be able to honor them. I'm not saying that there won't be a chance that we'll miss any of these, but yeah, once we take over the service, we can talk about these as well. Have a review of the backlog, your plans,
Yeah, yeah.
these promises, or some existing issues that are on the GitHub. This will come in due time. But
Yeah.
yeah, for the time being, for this month and probably the next, we will not be making any changes or additions like this. That's very likely.
And I
Because it's
want
too
to
early for that.
get
Yeah.
this out on the live stream as well, of course. Don't get any ideas. We will be checking those because people have in the past also told me that I said something, and I went back and checked and I did not say it. And so don't get any funny ideas. We will verify at least to a certain degree. And again, you're committing to do, you want to honor them, but of course not blindly and not everything. And I think
Exactly.
people who are watching the live stream are very good citizens of our community, but I guess everybody who's watching this also knows there are some bad apples as well, and so yeah.
Yeah.
We have now gotten 2 questions about SPN. One
Okay.
from Gavin. Gavin was asking if SPN, if they can expect SPN to get better, faster, more locations. Do you want, and Ronoil asked VPN versus SPN.
Yeah.
I can maybe quickly give the one-liner there, but
Yeah,
what
okay,
are your
go ahead.
thoughts in general?
Yeah, so the VPN versus SPN. Yeah, I think someone mentioned that that now your page about VPNs will go away because of SPN. That I think was done a couple of years ago. I've seen that back then. That page might go away. Of course, we haven't discussed this. We are very early for that. Maybe we'll change some wording on that. But generally, how we think about SPN is that it's so when we talk about VPNs as well, we usually mention threat modeling, and have people think really hard. Why do you need this? What would you like to achieve? What would you like to who do you like to protect yourself from? What kind of data would you like to protect? What are the different situations that you would use it? And not everyone needs a VPN, and but it's a limited tool. It's not good for all use cases, and depending on what you would like to achieve, I think SPN can be a better choice if you are concerned about some of the things. For example, the NetFlow related timing attack issues. I think we discussed this when we first started chatting, Rafael. So I think if you have certain ideas and requirements on what kind of protection that you want in your connection in this regard, SPN can be a better choice. So for that reason, I think we find SPN very interesting. But that's also the area, I think with Portmaster, we have a rather clear idea about the value and also the direction we can take with it and how it complements the VPN service. With SPN, I think we have some ideas, and some of them are pretty interesting and involves better integration with the VPN service, for example, and scaling it up and maybe offering it for other use cases, maybe some business to business kind of business development kind of thing. We have some contacts in certain communities, for example, the Bitcoin community, where they are looking for alternatives for Tor, for example. So we have these ideas, we have these notes, we have these conversations, but for that is also pretty early to tell where that will go. What I can be 100% sure about, it's not going to go away. We're not going to replace SPN with IVPN, and okay, you just have to use IVPN. And what is also certain is we will take the time to look into it. We have people in our team that have extensive experience with related skill set, who can have a very good understanding of the SPN, and we will look at, of course, improvements, scaling up. But that also requires demand. So that's where it gets tricky, of course, because if you see a certain number of people using it, and we have no other application, just the Portmaster integration, there is no reason to scale it up. There's no reason to add a lot of servers, a lot of locations if no one is using them. It's just, you are building up your costs and commitments to infrastructure providers. So that's why it's early to tell, but it's a very important piece in why we have decided to acquire Safing. And whatever that direction we take, there's always going to be options. We will never want to force anyone to use IVPN if they don't want to, or be forced to ditch SPN and stuff like that. That I can say for 100%. I'll make that commitment and live with it from this point, because that would not be the right move.
Yeah, super cool. And I also would say, I think in the video where I explained the differences between VPNs and SPN, what I said was, if you double the amount of nodes, you have the amount of traffic on each node. And so all the benefits, and again, SPN is faster than Tor, even in its current configuration, stuff like this, and with the current, and we just doubling it because you already have the capacity and the servers and the people there. I don't think it's a wise choice, and I think you know this, and the people who are managing it know this. And so being strategic and thinking about not just how it looks and how you can market it, but also about privacy, and like mixing 100 people on one server is different than mixing 10 people on one server. And so again, just doubling, tripling, whatever, this sounds interesting, and it's better, I guess, for VPNs, because there you are less concerned about the mixing, and you're more about in what countries can I watch all the stuff I want to watch at and so forth. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, that's going into the different direction in the VPN business, but yeah,
I understand completely.
I understand your point. I think for VPNs you have to have a certain baseline to get that crowding effect. But once you get that on a server, I think it's less of a consideration if you provide that. So yeah, please continue. Just wanted to
yeah. No, all is well. I just wanted to quickly say, well, this is not, it's not just about the business aspect, it's also about the privacy aspect. And you cannot just say, well,
that's a very good point. Yeah.
And bigger servers cost different money from time to time as well. And SPN, I don't know, I have not seen the IVPN infrastructure in that regard, how your server setup looks like and what type of connections they allow for and stuff. But SPN, we have picked higher capacity servers in the past where we're like, okay, good, this less, but it can so from our perspective can handle more connections.
Yeah, and maybe for the SPM part, I think the speed considerations and potential improvements, we haven't talked about this in depth yet, but I think I'm pretty sure Daniel has ideas, and just wanted to add that like at IVPN or within our team now, let's say the joint IVPN safing team, which will take over in the next quarter or so, we will have a person who is owning this part of the project, and specifically will be tasked, to look after it, maintain it, and also think about improvements. And we have a lot of faith in that person's skill set in coming up with ideas on improvements. But again, too early. So maybe I will say this too much, but yeah, I'd rather be very, very honest about where we are, rather than make any promises that we cannot fulfill. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, it's already we're in our last minutes. So and I guess you already answered half or the sub question of this, but I quickly wanted to just get it out. Henry asked a long question, and I'm only reading the first bit of it. Do I need to interact with IVPN services in the future, even if I don't want to? And I think you already said this to a certain degree, but what's the complete answer to this?
Yeah, I think the complete answer is, the short answer is no. We don't want to make people to take any steps or choices or trade-offs that they would feel uncomfortable with. It would not be a good practice, and it would not align with how we think about things.
Yeah.
So I can give you an example, and this was mentioned in one of our Reddit threads recently on the IVPN side. We have a legacy account management tool that we've used in the past, and we have phased out a couple of years ago. And there are still accounts on that because they just haven't switched, they haven't canceled, they haven't asked for a migration to a new system. And there were some considerations about this, especially of like, shall we force the migration? It will be better for them because they can get all the recent features which we don't support in that legacy area, and it would be something that would just benefit them without a lot of drawbacks. And we are always arrived to the conclusion that we don't want to make people do anything that they would haven't considered otherwise. So in this sense, there will always be a level of separation between IVPN and Portmaster. You might see the name IVPN or like some sort of a deeper integration popping up, but if you say no, leave me alone with this, then you don't have to interact with that at all. That's definitely true for the foreseeable future, and hopefully over the next years. And what we are not sure about, and what is I have to add it just in the sake of total transparency, is how whether there will be integrations on the website. So in terms of how you interact with your My Account, authentication, payments for the services, that might change in the future. Again, we are not sure yet, but just for the sake of ease of use and for our maintenance processes, we don't have to operate two parallel things for everything, but try to do it in a way that it's fast, maintainable, dependable, and so in this sense, what I can say is that there's a possibility, like for example, safing.io in this sense will go away in some sense, but Portmaster and SPN will not go away. As a names, as products will not go away, and they will be and there will be no forcing people using IVPN. So in this sense, you will not be forced to interact with IVPN, the service, if you don't want to. Or you might encounter the IVPN brand or the IVPN name, or you might have to go to the IVPN.net website at some point.
Yeah.
But even there would be no like aggressive upsells as we see with other VPN providers. And when you try to cancel, we give you 6 months free of this. So this is absolutely not our how we do things. So yeah.
Yeah, which is super good.
That's answer the question.
Yeah, no, and it's super good, and I understand. I think having some logo in Portmaster is only valid because you're putting all the resources in developing it, and I hope that people understand and see this and be thankful towards IVPN for pouring all those resources in this. And I sometimes know that people are thinking, well, it's open source, there are contributors and external people, and so far I can share like quality open source pull requests are super rare. So yes, there are other communities out there where they're taking free labor and taking it, but this is not the case here, and IVPN will pour many hours and tons of resources into this. And having a little logo somewhere so that you know whom to be thankful for, I think is only valid. And I am super thankful, and that's partly why I wanted to say this. And every time when I see some other open source, maybe that's also a little pitch here for everybody. If you have open source tools that you like, contribute to them like with money. If you cannot contribute in code, quality code, contribute with money. And so I think it's only valid. And if you're using Portmaster and you don't need SPN, consider getting IVPN Pro. You're not doing the pushing, I'm doing the the call out here. and I think it's okay.
Yeah, not gonna do any pitches in IVPN here. Rafael, do you have like 10 more minutes?
I do, because you wanted to get into the other questions.
No, I just wanted to address Gavin's comments on the Safing Live. Like, I think he has some doubts about like what I'm saying, and maybe just like this, it's not gonna happen now, but later in terms of like forcing IVPN on people. I
Okay.
encourage you to look into IVPN, how we communicate, and what we have done in the past, and how I communicate. Like we are very far from any kind of corporate speak and stuff like that. You know, we are a small company. We are people who are deeply plugged into the whole things happening in the privacy community, and we don't do double speak. We are one of the few VPN companies that like very transparent about not bullshitting, not promising anything, discouraging people from buying our product on our home site, on our web page. So I just wanted to say, like, if we say something like we are not sure about this aspect yet, and we don't know how we are going to play that part. So, for example, the like IVPN, like Safing.io, and the accounts might be managed on IVPN.net. Is it because we don't know yet? So there is no elaborate plan. We say something and we do something later. So I mean, again, I can give you my commitment, and if we break that, then it's going to be on me, and then you can say that we are not trustworthy with our promises, but no one will be forced to use IVPN if they don't want to. That's I think, and we were very clear about this early in our conversations as well, Rafael.
Yeah.
So
I think so too.
that would be not a good move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had two other questions on the YouTube.
That
YouTube
I wanted to ask,
so
because
I would be happy to get into those if you have time. I can.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think especially from Barbie Hunter, I think it's super cool, the question about the audits. And I have not thought about this, but are you planning on doing audits for SPN on a yearly cadence as well, because you're doing this for IVPN at the moment? Are you considering this?
Sure. We haven't talked about this, but it would make sense to me. So no firm promise, but this is something I think this is a very good suggestion. There might be some limitations or barriers that I don't know about, because we're just getting into the SPN side of things in our conversations with Daniel and Rafael. So you might have some insights into this, Rafael. But if there's no big barriers to this, technical or operational or otherwise, I think we'll be happy to explore this. Yep.
Super cool. Yeah. And we had Cure 53 audit parts of SPN in the past as well. So when we saw that you are using Cure 53 as well, we were like, okay, and it's different people, because if people know Cure 53, they have like contractors and different, so it's
different teams,
brand, and then it's different auditors beneath it. But no, yeah, super cool. Yeah. Then maybe to round things off a little, Pluto5 asked, what can we expect for 2025, if you want to quickly give an overview? Sure. I think you already said a couple of times.
Yeah, of course. But I think in terms of like timelines, that would be the most interesting. So I think our number one goal is to take over. So we have identified different parts of this operation that Daniel and Rafael mainly, and Vladimir to some extent is responsible for, which are like, I don't know, 6-8 main areas: infrastructure, SPN, payments, customer service, and other parts. And we have specific responsibilities assigned within our team who will take that over. And so we have started mapping these different areas out, and we will spend the next couple of weeks preparing for the actual handover, where we take everything over and have full responsibility for it. How much time that will take, then that will start in January. So we will start answering customer service emails. I will be responsible for, I don't know, refunds or any kind of questions around payments or issues with payments. And then step by step, there are some parts which are, of course, has the most complexity. So yeah, for example, taking over the deployments for the Portmaster. I think that will come a little bit later. And how much time this will take, we cannot tell for sure now. We'll give you an update on this. But after that is done, then the current IVPN team members will be fully responsible for operating the saving service. And at that point, we will discuss roadmaps, map it out roughly for a year, think about maybe quarters, identify some major developments that where we can bring value here, and also talk about the backlogs and some commitments and some things that Daniel and Rafael have planned for the service. So yeah, and at that point, what some new improvements will come in 2025. We will be much more confident. We'll have a lot more information to publish that, or let you know about. Okay, so now the process is done. We have taken some time to think about the roadmap, get your input on that, and then we'll be able to like roughly say what kind of things are coming for the rest of the year. So that's all I can say now. Anything else would be
exactly
relatively irresponsible. So
yeah, and probably to a certain degree dishonest, which I like that it's like that you're that upfront and honest about this, and I think it's the only valid answer you can give, and everybody who has been in software development will understand this. So yeah, super cool. Okay, so again, everybody who has more questions, and thank you for the increased engagement at the end here. We are over, so please send the questions in the comments below, or via email, or hop on the Discord. You can, like, the link is in the description, just add them in that live stream thread. We will continue to collect them and then address them in one way or the other, maybe another video, maybe live again, maybe recorded. We'll see, whatever fits best. And I'm not sure when this will happen. December has already started, and I guess for both of our sides, we've talked about doing this live this week. We already understood it might be more questions than we can handle in 1 hour, but yeah, we'll see how this will continue.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks, Rafael, for just thank you for taking the lead on this and asking these questions. And yeah, I was very happy to take on this opportunity, and just want to reiterate, there will be more questions, more people learning about this news. Yeah, just keep it coming, and they can be the very hard questions. If they are, anything that is reasonable. We know that in conversations like this, there are unreasonable questions, and also things that you cannot, have no good enough answer for. We understand that that's part of this whole process. But any questions that try to go deeper into any part of our operation, conduct, why, how, we are very, very open, very, very happy to speak to everyone in writing on Discord, here in live. I think doing it live would be a very good move, which would probably not happen next week, but the week after. And maybe, as I see, some people just woke up, so maybe a little bit of a later time, like closer to usual time. I'm very happy to do that, or even a third one. Again, it's very important for us to have these conversations. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one. Bye.